Hi, I am Allie Camilletti, and you are listening to Snack Leadership. I will be talking about everything leadership, broken down into bite-sized pieces. You will hear what different leadership skills look like in organizations and how they can rise teams up or take them down. I help leaders build resilience and improve performance by bringing awareness to opportunity behaviors in my business. Spark your mindset. I provide leadership and sales coaching, as well as team building and guest speaking. My hope is for you to feel inspiration and to create a spark in your mindset. Hi, everyone. Today we are talking about the leadership skill, focus. Focus is the discipline of prioritizing what matters most, sustaining attention on high-impact objectives, and ensuring decisions and actions remain aligned with long-term goals. Dr. Albert Bramante is a talent agent, performance psychologist, and mindset expert who has spent over 20 years helping high performers, both in the entertainment industry and beyond, conquer their mental roadblocks. With a Ph.D. in psychology and certifications in hypnosis and natural language processing, known as NLP, he bridges the gap between talent, business success, and the psychology of peak performance. Recently, in 2024, Albert released his book, Rise Above the Script. Albert, I am so excited for our conversation today. Thank you so much.
Well, I really appreciate you having me on here, Allie, and I'm happy to have this great conversation on focus. That's a very important topic that, it should be addressed. So,
Absolutely. I know we're talking about focus, but I got to say, when I read over your details, I really wanted to talk about hypnosis the whole time. But we will stay on track.
Which is interesting because that can really lead to focus. Because so I can go on tangents here, but I'll just say that it's highly related to focus.
So good. Okay, share with us something that you've recently learned about yourself.
Interesting thing is that I tend to, I'm a very thorough person, so sometimes I overly thorough things without go way over the line where I overthink, and something that you can relate. Like I'm gonna be starting my own podcast soon, and I'm so obsessed with do I have the right camera? Do I have the right thing that it's funny because even my I use ChatGPT a lot, and I think even sometimes the bots are getting tired of me, asking questions just record already, So I think that's part of me is I think I focus too much sometimes on the structure on things rather than looking at okay, let's do the execution and then maybe refine later, So maybe there's a bit of perfectionism in me as well. So
for sure. For sure. That's what I'm hearing. And I can relate. And I'm on a committee right now and we're launching a learning platform. And somebody recently said, they're like, I think you're overthinking it. I'm like, absolutely. Thank you for sharing that. Let's move on.
Yes. So
that's great insight though. And I am also the type of person that will just jump. I will put the cart before the horse more than not. And so yeah. When are you going to be releasing your podcast?
That's a very good question. I definitely got to set it for 30 days, at least having the first episode out because I have the equipment and I'm planning it. And it's something that is okay, I'm too focused on okay, do I have the right camera? Do I have the right prompter? Do I have the right this and that, the right microphone and all these things? And, I remember the I think my AI bot is getting a little frustrated with me. It's that's a lot, but it was just okay, just go into a closet and record already, and that's sort of okay. But the idea here is, and what's interesting, and I'll call myself out on this. Part of the reason why I wrote the book on self-sabotage, again, it's an area that I've seen a lot in, but it's also it's one of those I'm also a client. I don't know if you remember back in the 80s and 90s, they used to have these hair club for men commercials, and the host, the expert, whoever the host would say, I'm not only, the president, I'm also a client. So
Yeah.
I think it's like, okay, I'm not, only the expert on self sabotage. I'm also a self saboteur myself, that. So it's like one of those things that, um, can heavily relate to. So,
Oh, completely. I think about that with trust. I talk about trust, but it's because it's something I've deep dived into so much because I struggle with it.
hmm
And
yeah.
I feel like we see that a lot come up. So when we talk about focus, yeah, tell us about like someone that you have spent time with that you feel is really good at focus.
Well, I would have to say, some of the, mentors that I've had, previous business partner that I've had was very, very focused, very thorough. And for me, I can say like one of my archetypes is a thinker. So I've always was a thinker. And, ever since I was in elementary school and growing up, I was always a reader because that was like my only sanctuary was the library. And
Mhm.
so, like I followed, I read a lot of books by, Stephen Covey, Seven Habits of Highly Effective People, and, um, started following a little bit of Tony Robbins and Jim Rome and all those people. And I think for me, just seeing how determined they are,
Yeah.
and sometimes even just looking at like how important business people are, like my, in my family, I have a cousin who I grew up with. We're basically the same age, and now he owns several, a few furniture warehouses, in the country. But I attribute that for his laser focus on, not getting distracted, and
Yes.
whether it's by the new shiny object, which is sometimes we all get distracted by, or even our own brain, and that even leads to, in my book, the basic gist of it is how we get in our own way, and
Yes.
that's where overthinking comes in, and that can derail our focus when
So
we
talk
start. Mhm.
Yeah. What I'm like wanting to know from you is where do you feel like we can get in our own way with the idea of focus?
Well,
And what is the good balance of where we're productive?
I think we get in our own way because we overthink, or we're too distracted. If a lot, especially if we have like a lot of stuff happening. Sometimes we have a lot, dozens of browser tabs open on our computer, and we have our phones that are constantly going off, and so we can easily get distracted. So sometimes, and this is something where deep focus comes in, where sometimes it's like, okay, 90 minutes, just do 90 minutes of deep work, turn off your notifications, stick to one tab and focus on that for 90 minutes. But at the end of the 90 minutes, you definitely should take, at least a 15-minute break
Yes.
where you can check your phone, you can check, social media if that's your thing, and get up and walk around and move around. Um, and so that's as long as you incorporate breaks in there, because we're not meant to sit it for 6 hours a day. This is why, even coming from an educational standpoint, I don't know whose idea was it to say that kids should sit in the classroom 6 hours a day. I
Yep.
don't, that to me doesn't work.
Correct.
Because we need breaks. So
Yes.
I think the thing is, like, if I know I have a break coming in, okay, I can then stay focused on the task. It's okay. This is what I need to do for this moment because I know I have a break coming up.
Yep.
But I think what is important is to plan it, not just wing it. I'll just say, okay, I'm gonna be disciplined today. Okay, how? You know, let's figure out how you're gonna be disciplined. Because if I, sit there and I've taught students for thousands of students, And I can tell you, I've seen this scenario. I've done it myself. I'm going to write this paper up. Oh, let me see what's on Netflix, and let me watch that next YouTube video. Or I promise I'll do, the task after, and then before you know it, you spent 3 hours watching YouTube videos and nothing on doing the task that you set out to do. So the important thing, I think, one of the first steps with focus is to have a plan of action, an action plan. Where it's okay. I'm going to spend this amount of time. This is my goal for today, and let me break that up.
Have
Let me
you
break that goal.
Yeah, have you always been someone that's really good at focus?
No, I'll be honest. No, I try to be, or I could lie and say, yeah, oh sure, Allie, I am. I'm no, you
Well,
know,
I
yeah,
think that that's good, being honest about it, and that's what makes you good about being able to support others who struggle with it as well. So what I'm
yeah,
hearing is I'm hearing have a plan, and then I'm hearing give yourself time, allow yourself time to get up and move in between, which I am a big advocate of. And I've recently brought in like afternoon walks. And I just do 2 miles, that's it. But I get outside because, like you talked about, just kind of getting in your head a little bit, I can do that as well. And so that's my
yeah.
processing time that I
Well,
can go.
yeah, and to add to that point about like walking, we're not meant to be sedentary, you know, people, creatures in a sense. We're meant to be. It's in our DNA. It's in our brain. It's in our architecture of our body to move around,
Yes.
and that's why it's a good idea to do that. Break things up. Get natural sunlight, vitamin D. Get all of that in there, because one thing I found, even sometimes when I'm walking or when I'm moving, even what I may be battling my head against when I'm sitting in a deep session, all of a sudden I get a stroke of insight. Aha.
Mhm.
And then I come back and now I'm even, the answer came to me when I wasn't thinking about it. So that's another benefit for taking breaks, is you're not, you know, batting your head, because with anything, when you try too hard, it won't be effective. So, and also being honest with yourself too. Like, if
Yeah.
you're in a space where you're not able to focus, don't try it. Put it aside, come back to it an hour, half hour later, whatever you need to do. Because if you force something, it's not going to work. It's not going to be your best work. Um, One of the issues that I dealt with personally, and I see a lot with my students, my acting clients, is the idea of procrastination.
Yeah.
Now, a lot of times we will tell ourselves consciously when we procrastinate, oh, I work better under pressure. I work deadlines. I need, strict deadlines. And the answer to that is absolutely not. What might be happening is fear is coming in. There's that fear of failure that comes in.
Hmm.
And when you put something off for the last minute, you don't have a lot of time to think about that fear of failure.
Yeah.
So it's a safety mechanism. It's a, it's an adjustment. It's a, built-in response to, deal with fear. So that's why I often say self sabotage is an adaptive response.
It is so true. It is so true. I love that you brought that up, the fear piece. It makes a lot of sense as I think
Yeah.
about that. I'm kind of a little bit of the opposite. I don't really procrastinate. I schedule things far out because I want to have the flexibility
Hmm.
to push it if I need to, right? Because things change.
Yeah.
I get sick, my daughter gets sick, life happens, and I want that flexibility to not be under pressure because I can't stand pressure.
Oh, and I think that's the smartest move, is to plan things out, put things on a calendar.
Yes.
I one of the things that I really started adapting is getting out of that someday mentality. Because you'll hear people say, someday I'm going to write a book, or someday I'm going to do this, or someday I'm going to do this. Yeah, someday I want to. No, start with a plan. Pull out your calendar and plan it. And maybe it won't go entirely as planned or by the exact date, but when you put it on your calendar, it's real. It's actually happening now. It's not a conceptual or what if or hypothetical. It's really happening.
Yeah.
and so that's one thing I've implemented myself. I teach. I'll use my example as a college professor. Um, I used to be so behind in papers, until I put everything in a calendar and said, okay, this time I'm going to grade. This time, Dominique, I'm going to grade. This time I'm going to grade. I haven't been behind, and it's amazing. You know, so the reality is, the antidote for procrastination is focus and scheduling. you know
Yes.
y- your calendar is your best friend here. Your calendar should be very filled, and it doesn't necessarily have to be meetings. It could just be, okay, this time of the day I'm going to write this. Even put in your walks too. Say, okay, this time I'm going to walk, because when you put in your calendar, especially if you have the apps on the apps, you'll get an alert and say, okay, time to walk now, time to move. And even if you can't do it with exactly that moment, okay, you're working on something, 5 minutes, 10 minutes later, you can certainly get up and take that walk. So
I
yeah,
love my calendar. My calendar is my best friend, and I feel like I've always been a calendar person, but I will say I think menopause pushed it into even a
Mhm.
bigger focus because as a woman, when you stop remembering things, you need the tools. And
Yeah,
it has been my best friend and continues to be.
yeah, and especially with life changes, because even now, of course, we don't men don't go through menopause, so theoretically.
Theoretically.
Yeah, I mean, there is something, the evidence that we go through the mood changes at least. But
Yep.
ever since over 40, I was like, I need to start prioritizing things, because it flies by, as you know. Before you know it, it's a holiday. Before you know it's a new year, and it's like, okay, that not to get too existential, but it's like, okay, I'm not getting any younger, and what legacy do I want to leave now? What footprint do I want to leave? And I like to think something, that I'm doing something. So, and I think this is kind of like, I'm sure you can relate, is I wish I, could have a nice conversation with my 18-year-old self, and maybe, proverbial slap myself around a little bit, and say, okay, 90% of what I was concerned about, 90% of the stuff I was doing, no big deal. It's nothing, and so, but I when I was growing up, we didn't listen to our parents, so I probably, if even if I could go back in time and talk to my 18-year-old self, probably wouldn't listen. No,
No,
I wouldn't.
I find that
I
age doesn't really listen much.
No, because we that age knows everything. They have
Yep.
all the answers.
Yep.
But the truth is I think going back to, as we get older, we start to realize focus is what we really need.
Yes.
And even if we look at the research on memory decline, it's memory is like a muscle. I don't necessarily subscribe to the idea, okay, that it's natural or expected for us to lose memory as we get older. Yes, it's more possible, but at the same time, there's a lot of safeguards.
Yeah.
I know plenty of people that are in their I have relatives that are in their 90s
That's
that
awesome.
are amazingly sharp.
Yeah.
For that, and I've also seen people in their 60s and 70s go downhill. You
Yeah.
know, mentally and physically. So, and it all really ties down to, again, how are you using it? What are you doing?
Yeah.
And this is why I think when all of us need to be doing something, daily, productive, and being productive. So,
I agree. All right, talk to us about a mentor you've had.
okay, so I've had a few. I've always believed in that. I've had multiple. I would say it first started with in high school. I had two teachers that I, really looked up to. Now, give you a bit of context, I was never bullied. I was never, picked on or anything. But I was the type of child, even though, like I said, I have a cousin my own age, I don't have any siblings that are my age. I was the youngest of five. So the closest sibling to my is 8 years older than I am. So
Wow.
I
Yeah.
never grew up with brothers and sisters. So I had a hard time relating to peers my own age. I was the type of person, when we go to family gatherings, I was hanging out at the adults table, having a conversation with adults. Really didn't know how to hang out with kids and socialize my own age. And same thing in high school. So I was really close to my teachers. I think for me, what I saw was tenacity, um, focus, discipline. Um, I also, even in college, I had a couple professors that were mentors, that were really prolific, very, very much thinkers like I am. But I kind of felt in a non-traditional way, because some of the mentors that were in high school and college were also the people that no one really liked, because they were tough, hard.
Yeah.
Um, I remember because I minored in communication theory when I was in college and in my undergrad, and I had to take this capstone class in communications. And at the time it was offered, at the time I had to take this one professor that everyone was telling for a few semesters prior to, whatever you do, avoid. Well, with the timing I had, I couldn't avoid.
Yeah.
And I walked in there really nervous, of course, naturally being, a 20-year-old walking into a class that was told this professor's, impossible. Turned out to be one of the best classes I've ever had. One of the best professors and mentors that I've had. I still keep in touch with on LinkedIn to this day. So
Oh,
I think the point is that we all need mentors.
yes.
Find someone a little bit more successful than you are, you know,
Yes.
um, and that's going to hold you accountable. It's not going to sugarcoat you. A mentor is not your friend. I mean, yeah, you can have a good rapport with them. You can have a friendly rapport with them, but not your friend. Meaning that they should, should be able to call you out
Yeah.
when you're not doing things, to challenge you, to hold you accountable.
Yep.
That's what a good mentor will do. They may, you may get angry with them. You may even get upset with them sometimes. You may even get hurt by some of the stuff they're saying initially. Of course, obviously, them always being respectful, but at the same time, that's how you grow.
Yeah.
Sometimes being a little uncomfortable.
For sure.
And that's also another thing too, that a mentor kind of really taught me, is like, it's okay to be uncomfortable.
Yes. Yes. Or growing is what I always think about
Go-
when I'm uncomfortable. It means I'm growing. Doesn't mean
Exactly.
it feels great all the time, but it means I'm growing.
It's not supposed to feel good, and it's supposed to be scary, and it's okay, and I think that's one of the things that I try to now impart in others. It's okay to be scared.
Yeah.
Courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is the ability to step into the fear and still keep going. And I can admit, like, there's times when I'm terrified and doing things, but I'm going to do it.
Yep.
And that's the important thing too about what a mentor has taught me. So a good mentor, I've always believed, is someone who's going to hold you accountable, because that's the only way you're going to grow.
I love it. So, how about a quote that you feel really embodies the leadership skill of focus?
So, I know we talked about quote beforehand. One of the thing, another quote that because I'm as my background in NLP is,
Yeah.
there's no such thing as failure, only feedback.
Mm,
So, and that's one of the presuppositions or, expectations of NLP. So we don't make, every time we make mistakes, they're opportunities to grow.
yeah.
They're opportunities for us to push forward and to really embrace what it is that we're trying to do. So a good mistake is going to tell us, okay, this gets us closer to the thing. I forget exactly where I read this, but like, Thomas Edison, when he was doing his inventions, had failed 1,000 times. Like, made 1,000 different prototypes, and someone said to him, why did you keep going? And his response was, and again, I'm paraphrasing this. I might get this quote off a bit, but he said something along the lines of, "No, I get 1,000 times to get opportunities to get it right."
It's all about how you shift your mindset on it.
And going back to the conversation with my mentor in college, one of my, professors, the one that I was telling you it was impossible, didn't refer to exams as tests. He called them opportunities.
Yep.
Opportunities to earn a grade, opportunities to show you what you can do. So that to me is just failure can be the opportunity to keep moving. We unfortunately, I think, because of we're so addicted to instant gratification that if we don't get what we want the first few times, we quit.
Oh, and
It's
it's
like
become worse.
it's become worse. It's almost like one time up that I'm done.
Yep.
And if you always look at babies, and I've talked about this a lot before, if you look at infants, for instance, and toddlers when they're learning to walk, they fall down hundreds of times, struggle, stagger, fall down. What do? They get back up. They don't sit there and say, I quit walking. They keep doing it. And eventually they become skilled walkers. So I think we need to go back and borrow their mindset and mentality when it comes to that. Because again, just because one or two times something didn't work does not mean that we should abandon ship. It just means maybe we need to switch our strategy a bit and alter
Yeah.
our strategy a bit. So again, there's no failure, only feedback.
So good. You are a wealth of knowledge, and I enjoy talking with you so much. Before we go into what your favorite snack is, share with me something that you really want to make sure everybody hears today.
So it was a quote that we talked about earlier, and it was, there's no such thing as rejection, only a simple reminder that your services are not needed today. And what I mean by that is because a lot of times when we hear the word no, not right now, whether it's a pitch, whether it's a request and someone says no, whether it's, we're asking for a date or whether we're asking for a collaboration and they say no, it very rarely means not now. Never. It just means it's just not now. So a no means not now, not today. And we just keep going. And we keep moving. We keep steam ahead. So just because you get that door closed in your face one day does not mean tomorrow that another door is going to open. We just have to stay focused. And yes, now if you get repeatedly, now, with no's or failure, then it's time to just change your strategy.
Yeah.
Okay, what is it? Do I need to tweak my pitch? Am I going to need to refine what I'm doing? So whatever it is just don't give up. Because eventually it will work out. And that's one thing I've learned is everything, no matter what happens, is always going to work out. It's going to work out. It may not seem like it at the time. Again, it may seem scary. It may seem a bit overwhelming. But at the end of the day, everything that we're doing is going to work out in the end.
I so agree with you. I definitely do. Okay, let's wrap it up with what's your favorite snack?
It was interesting when I saw this question. I was like, okay, what do I answer with? I would have to say for me, it's wheat thins. The wheat thins. I enjoy that, and I would say the close second would be microwave popcorn. But I would say wheat thins are probably my number one favorite.
So good. Albert, thank you so much for your time today. I'm so appreciative of your knowledge and all of your sharing, and I look forward to checking out your book.
Well, thank you again, Allie, for having me on here.
Thank you for tuning in to Snack Leadership. I hope you felt inspiration, motivation, and felt your mindset spark. Snack Leadership is recorded and produced by myself, Ali Camilletti, and music by Shireen Amini.